Peace and blessings. Shout out to the 12 that are scattered abroad. Greetings. Now, right here, it states another heat wave in Europe around July 7th, which is right around the corner. And of course, there's many videos showing people passing out, infrastructure being melted, a lot of people jumping in pools and drowning because of the sun. The sun is a friend to those children of the sun, or to the Aboriginal or indigenous melanated copper-colored people, and to those that are hybrids to a certain extent, or those that do not have a protective carbon in their skin. This is why they have to use suntan lotion. And of course, when you look at the UV rays, it shows them in blackface. So need I say more? Let's look at a couple of videos and scriptures, because the Most High is judging this world, whether people want to believe it or not. Okay? Whether you understand the Bible or whether you don't understand the Bible, eventually you will come to understand what all is taking place.
You know what's weird? If you shave a chimpanzee, the skin underneath is pink, pale pink.
Now that's interesting. He said pale or pink. Let that sink in for a minute.
Why do you use the word? Why call yourselves black? I mean, you people are more brown than black.
Why do you call yourselves white? You people are more pink than white. You people are more pink than white.
Precisely.
Almost human pale pink. If you saw it without context, you might mistake it for a sunburned tourist. Same with a gorilla. Same with a bonobo. Same with almost every great ape. The fur is dark. The skin under the fur is light. Now look at your hand. Whatever color it is, brown, beige, pink, olive, dark, light, it does not have a layer of black fur covering it. Your skin is bare. And here's the thing nobody really stops to think about. For every other great ape on Earth, the skin doesn't have to deal with the sun. The fur deals with the sun. The skin just sits underneath, protected, pale, doing nothing. For you, the skin is doing all of it. Every photon of sunlight that hits your arm right now is hitting living tissue. Every UV ray that touches you is touching cells that have to defend themselves on the spot, with no buffer, no shield, no fur. Which raises a question that almost nobody asks. When did human skin become bare? And when it did become bare, what color was it? Because here's the part that's going to bend your brain a little. The first humans to lose their fur did not stay pale underneath. They couldn't. They were standing on the African equator with naked skin under the strongest sun on the planet.
So right here we have the book, Melanin, the Basic Guide to Knowledge of Self. Right here we have uromelanin. Uromelanin is the most common type of melanin. It occurs in the skin and hair and has a high electrical charge. Uromelanin is concentrated in molecular weight and density. It is absorbent and comes in two colors, black and dark brown. Black uromelanin occurs most often in melanin dominant people and age melanin recessive people. A small amount of black uromelanin in the absence of other pigments causes gray hair. Brown uromelanin occurs most often in young melanin recessive people. A small amount of brown uromelanin in the absence of other pigments causes yellow blonde hair. Newsmedical.net. Okay. Right here, become aware of what melanin is. Melanin is a God-given gift. It is the most important, the most complex and perfect molecule in the human body. Okay, let's pause right there. So now we're going to go back to this book, Thy Son, Thy Rod, and Thy Staff. Okay. Where they stated, I read this before, but we're going to read it again. All right. Science of melanin. Okay. Melanin is classically defined as a dark brown to black pigment occurring in the hair, skin, and iris of the eye in people and animals. Okay. And of course, we read this before. Genetics have proven the most melanated race is the black race. Okay. It appears the Most High has created a melanin-based photosynthetic molecular skin suit for humans. Okay.
God is black.
God is black. Everybody knows God is white. Everything the white man taught you, you accepted. He taught you you were a black heathen, and you believed him. He taught you to worship a blonde, blue-eyed Jesus with white skin, and you believed him.
Seeking forgiveness. Are you seeking forgiveness, Walter?
Forgiveness for what, Reverend?
Vivian said you told her that God is black.
I simply posed it as a possibility.
We don't speculate on God's color, Walter. If you ever want Vivian to speak to you again, go upstairs and tell her that God is white.
But we're really not sure. I mean, the Hindus don't believe it, the Muslims, the Buddhists.
God is white. It's simple logic. His son is white.
That's not proof. I'm white, my son is black.
So right here in Revelations 4:3, it states, and he who sat there was like a jasper and a sardius stone in appearance. So it's giving a reference to how he was described in the scene in heaven. His appearance was that of a jasper and sardius stone, which are a copper colored or ruddy brown. Okay. Now that's coming from the scriptures. I'm not making this up. You can read it for yourself in context. And then they mock the so-called black man when they put it in their films. Okay? I mean, it just makes so much sense. But some people want to say God is a spirit and he has no color. Bullshit. So right here in Greek, it states sardinos. Sardinos. Number one, sardius, a precious stone of which there are two types. The former is called a carnelian because flesh colored. Keyword flesh colored. And the latter a sard.
Come with me. Black, destitute of light, devoid of color, enveloped in darkness, hence utterly dismal or gloomy, as the future looked black.
Pretty good with them words, ain't you?
Soiled with dirt, foul, sullen, hostile, forbidding, as a black day. Foully or outrageously wicked, as black cruelty, indicating disgrace, dishonor, or culpability. And there's others, black male, black ball, black guard.
Yeah, well, that's something, all right.
Let's look up white. Here. Read.
White. Of the color of pure snow, reflecting all the rays of the spectrum. The opposite of black. Free from spot or blemish. Innocent. Pure. Huh. Ain't this something without evil intent? Ain't this something without evil intent? Harmless, honest, square dealing, and honorable. Wait a minute, but this was written by white folks, though, right? I mean, this white folks book.
This sure ain't no black man's book.
So what we reading this one for?
Because the truth is lying there, if you read behind the words.
So right here it states, the term flesh colored refers to the natural shade of human skin. However, historically, it was often used as a synonym for pale, pinkish, beige, assuming white skin. I repeat, assuming white skin as default. Because this excludes diverse skin tones, the term is now widely considered outdated and exclusionary. So we have to read between the lines. Now, when it states in Greek sardinos, is saying, or carnelian, because flesh colored, meaning it's a brown, copper, ruddy brown color, as John was describing the scene in heaven. And we know these people describe themselves as what, white, but they're really what? Pink or pale to a certain extent.
You people are more pink than white.
Precisely.
Number 1, clear, free from spots, free from a dark hue. White as a fair skin, a fair complexion. Number 2, beautiful, handsome, properly having a handsome face. So in context, this is talking about a woman's beauty or her attractiveness. This has nothing to do with the skin tone or how she looks. So we got to read each sentence in context. Just have to read that again. Now right here it states, melanin is mother and father, the essence of all, simply everything. Although mostly acknowledged as just skin pigmentation, melanin is carbon, the element required by all living things, our body's operating system, and much more. In fact, it is responsible for all functions executed by your body. No matter what the blessing or problem, it can be traced back to melanin. The word melanin comes from the Greek word melanos, and means black. Okay. So in essence, when you look at some of Denzel Washington's films, like the movie Carbon Copy, that's like a subliminal hint in the scene where, you know, the white guy or the ish person is stating that maybe God is black, right? And then the white pastor says, it's logical, God's son is white, therefore he is white. But how can that be when you have Aboriginal indigenous people that were all dark skinned? And of course they had civilizations and so forth of a varying degree. But why would they worship a pale or pink God that did not exist during that time period? Right?
They had a choice: evolve some kind of biological sunscreen, fast, or die out. So they evolved one. They turned their skin black, not slowly, not eventually, fast. Within a few 100,000 years of losing the fur, the skin underneath had become rich with melanin, the natural pigment that absorbs UV before it can shred DNA. According to estimates from genetic studies of the MC1R gene, dark human skin was already deeply fixed in the human lineage by about 1.2 million years ago, which means that for the vast majority of the history of our genus, every single human alive anywhere on Earth was dark-skinned.
So right here we have a depiction of Godfrey Higgins, and he states in his book, The Anacalyptus, Volume 1, we have found a black complexion, meaning what? The face or the whole body, or something relating to it whenever we have approached the origin of nations. The Armata, the goddess of Matamama, the founders of the oracles, the Memen of the first idols were always black. Venus, Jupiter, Apollo, Bacchus, Hercules, Astaroth, Adonis, Horus, Apis, Osiris, and Amun. In short, all the deities were black. They remain as they were first in very ancient times. I know some people will say, well, black means pale. No, in the context of this black, they're talking about the color, like the Negro.
You know what's weird? If you shave a chimpanzee, the skin underneath is pink, pale pink, almost human pale pink. If you saw it without context, you might mistake it for a sunburned tourist. Same with a gorilla. Same with a bonobo. Same with almost every great ape. The fur is dark. The skin under the fur is light. Now look at your hand. Whatever color it is, brown, beige, pink, olive, dark, light, it does not have a layer of black fur covering it. Your skin is bare. Not most of them, all of them, without exception, for roughly 1 million years. But for 99% of human history, this didn't exist. No pale faces, no freckles, no blondes, no redheads, no light skin anywhere. For nearly the entirety of our existence, every human on this planet looked, broadly speaking, like a modern East African. So why was that the case? Why was dark skin not just common, but mandatory? And what does this say about the human body that nobody is really telling you?
So right here, number 1, Moses' hand becomes leprous, a sign from the Most High for those who read the scriptures. This takes place in the book of Exodus, chapter 4, verse 6 through 7. And the Lord Yahweh said furthermore unto him, Put now thy hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, Put thy hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. This was one of the miraculous signs the Most High gave Moses to show the Israelites that he had sent him. So this perception that the Israelites were a pale or pinkish people in the hot sun is ludicrous. Number 2, Miriam becomes leopardess. Miriam's story is found in book of Numbers 12, 1 through 15. Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of his Cushite wife, meaning what? She was an Ethiopian, modern day Ethiopians, right? And questioned his unique authority. The Most High called of 3 of them to the tent of meeting and declared that Moses and his faithful servant, after the Most High departed, the cloud departed, and behold, Miriam became leopardess, white as snow. Numbers 12 and 10. Right here it states, Aaron pleaded with Moses, and Moses cried out, Heal her now, O God, I beseech thee. The Most High instructed that Miriam be shut outside the camp for 7 days, after which she was healed and allowed to return. In the biblical narrative, Miriam's leprosy is presented as a judgment for speaking against Moses, while Moses' temporary leprous hand was a miracle or miraculous sign demonstrating the Most High's power. Both passages describe the skin becoming white as snow, but they occur in different contexts and serve different purposes.
The answer is hidden in a stranger story than anything you've heard about skin color before. Let's go. Let's start with the moment our ancestors stopped being furry, because this is the actual beginning of the story, and almost nobody gets taught it in school. For most of mammalian evolution, our ancestors looked like every other primate alive today, covered in hair, pale-skinned underneath, quietly going about their primate business in trees. Then, somewhere between about 1.2 and 2 million years ago, somewhere in Africa, something started changing. The human lineage began losing body hair. Not all of it. We kept the hair on top of our heads, where it shielded us from direct sun. We kept hair around the genitals and armpits for pheromone reasons science is still arguing about. We kept eyebrows, possibly to keep sweat out of our eyes. But across the rest of the body, the dense pelt that had covered our ancestors for millions of years quietly thinned out into the almost invisible fuzz you have on your arms right now. The British biologist Mark Pagel of the University of Reading and his colleague Walter Bodmer published a now classic 2003 paper in the journal Proceedings of the Royal Society B, arguing one of the leading explanations for why this happened: parasites, body lice, ticks, fleas. Pagel and Bodmer are body lice, ticks, fleas. Pagel and Bodmer are.
Now, brothers and sisters, you heard it from the horse's mouth. With all that extensive body hair, hirsutism, or hairy in the scriptures as Esau described in Genesis 25 and 25, all over like a hairy garment, they had ticks, fleas, body lice, and mites. And this is where the Black Plague spread throughout Europe because of the plagues and diseases from these people. It wasn't no damn rats. BBC did an article years ago, decades ago, saying that it was not the rats. It was human hygiene. It was these specific people. It's not too far-fetched. That's just the real history of it. And he's telling you right there. all body hair. Of course, the intermixture with our people, eventually after generations, they start to lose that fur because of the intermixing. Now, right here, we have an article from BBC. Now, excuse me when I said decades ago. Actually, this is 2018, January 15th. Black Death spread by humans, not rats. Okay? So, I'm using human loosely, okay? Because even their own scientists have said or stated that the original humans, or the only human, are the Africans, or quote unquote black people. So right here it states rats were not to blame for the spread of plague during the Black Death, according to a study. And why was it called the Black Death? Well, it killed the majority of the black population of Europe, those that didn't have any antibodies, they couldn't fight the diseases, right? So right here it states the rodents and their fleas were thought to have spread a series of outbreaks in the 14th through 19th century Europe, but a team from the universities of Solo and Farah now says the Black Death can be largely ascribed to human fleas and body lice. Okay, so there you go. I don't need to say nothing else. The Black Death claimed an estimate of 25 million lives, more than a third of Europe's population between 1347 and 1351. So right here it states, he and his colleagues then stimulated disease outbreaks in each of these cities, creating 3 models where the disease was spread by rats, airborne transmission, fleas, and lice that live on humans and their clothes. In 7 out of the 9 cities studied, the human parasite model was a much better match for the pattern of the outbreak. So even the science tells you or backs up the claims that a lot of brothers been saying for decades, that these people with their excessive body hair spread those diseases throughout Europe and killed a lot of our people, per se. It mirrored how quickly it spread and how many people it affected, especially our people. You can't fight those type of diseases with armor, right? The conclusion was very clear, said Professor Stenneth. The lice model fits best. It would be unlikely to spread as fast as it did if it was transmitted by rats. It would have to go through this extra loop of the rats rather than being spread from person to person.
Argued that the loss of fur was driven, at least partly, by the survival advantage of being harder for parasites to hide on. Sexual selection probably reinforced it. A partner with a clean, parasite-free body was a partner worth choosing. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the hairy ones lost out. The smooth-skinned ones reproduced. The fur went away. But here is where it gets fascinating, because that explanation alone is not enough. Because losing fur opened up something much more important than parasite resistance. It opened up cooling.
So right here, Genesis 27:11, before Jacob tricked his blind father Isaac into giving him the family blessing, he pointed out a major flaw in his mother's plan. Behold, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Okay? So the emphasis on Jacob being smooth, and Esau being a hairy or hirsute man. And of course, H8163, Sire, kid, goat, devil. This is why you have an analogy to, our hair being like wool or sheep, and their hair being of goat or shaggy or like dog hair. Like when they get their hair wet, that wet dog smell.
What you're looking at right here are Europeans in Paris fighting over air conditioning units because, as it happens every year, there's a heat wave. You're talking about like 38 to 40 degrees Celsius, which is 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Only 18 to 20% of Europeans have AC at all. Now, once you're in the southern part of Europe, Greece, Italy, etc., they have it more because it's usually warmer in the south. But in the northern parts of Europe, UK, France, Germany, and above that, Norway, etc., it didn't get hot that often because you're in a cold environment. It's usually pretty cool. So what do? Open the window if it gets a little bit too hot. But sometimes, just like right now, and I would presume every single summer, you have a heat wave. And when that heat wave hits, there's nothing you can do. Not only in the homes of Europeans, but also in the places of business, on buses, trains, everywhere. AC is just not really a thing. And then they also think that it can make you sick. Well, it can make you sick if you're going to have the AC on 60 degrees Fahrenheit and having the fan right on your face. Yeah, it can make you sick. But put the AC on 75, a low setting, but not too low. Homes in Europe are built to retain heat because it gets cold, but sometimes it gets hot. So now we got a problem. Do you know that every year more Europeans die from lack of air conditioning than Americans die from gun violence? Fun fact, unfortunate fact, but a fun fact. The solution, get a little window unit, get a little something for times like this. You might not always need it, but I'd rather have that than to be rushing into a store fighting like Black Friday 20 years ago to get a thing I should have had anyway in my home for times like this.
Alerte générale pour toute la France est totalement ici.
Abbastanza, c'è colato anche il semaforo.